Go on and check to make sure you don't have any witnesses.
Any subpoenaed witnesses in the courtroom?
Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the evidence you're about to give during this cause will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Please have a seat.
Is exhibit number 1. It's a big placard here on the stand. And tell me if you recognize that exhibit.
That's our neighborhood.
Okay. And that is what's the name of that neighborhood?
Sturkey Hills.
Okay. And what road do you live on?
We live in Cardindale.
Okay. I'm going to. This is pretty condensed. So. We're going to move that in as exhibit number 1. It's a Cage's map of the Cardindale or Sturkey Hills subdivision outlined in red.
You need to get
No, yeah.
very well.
I don't mind that introduce that exhibit. Mr. Allen, without her.
Okay.
I mean, let's just go ahead and make it to.
We looked at some maps before trial, and when we went before trial, the red marker is that approximately the location of your residence.
Yes, sorry.
You switch to table 2.
I'm not plugged in. I'm not. Yeah, that's not me.
What do you got, 2 through what, Kevin? 2 through 5. I guess we'll just have a look at these and pass them to the jury. Technical difficulty. Number 3, exhibit number 3 is that is marked with the actual address of your 6802 Cardindale. You recognize that and orient yourself in the streets and the maps. That's not accurate in terms of the streets and the location. Number 4, what I'm going to hand you, you recognize that exhibit.
It's a neighborhood.
Okay, and that's just a satellite arrow view of your neighborhood and orientation of the houses
Yes.
as they appear. And if you could go ahead and with a black pen circle your house.
Okay. You want my approach?
Sure. This might help you a little bit better if you look at number 5. And that's an aerial map of Cardindale. You recognize your house there, right? Okay, go ahead and circle it.
That's a photo on this.
Yeah. And then put a JW on it. Okay, and then so you are the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6th house from this street. If you could do the same marking on this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6th house. We could enter these exhibit 2 through 4, just to pass these to the jury as a location of residence.
No objection. No objection.
Let them do the see this or
2 through 5. Now I'm handing you was the mark for identification is number 6. Do you recognize that exhibit?
This is my daughter, Emma Walker.
Okay, when was that picture taken?
And it was fall of 2016. It was probably October 2016.
And she's wearing her cheer
The
outfit?
cheer outfit, yes.
And that's a fair representation of what Emma looked like?
Yes.
We would move that in as number 6. Judge, I was wanting to publish on the screen here. We're having some technical difficulties, so if we could pass that one as well.
No objection.
That'd be fine.
And for the record, Judge, that's going to be the same photograph of Emma's life photo that we showed in the opening statements.
Yes.
May I approach her? What I'm handing is the mark for identification is exhibit number 7. You were talking before we talked about the maps about Riley Gaul and your concern about the way he spoke to your daughter.
yes.
You also told the jury that you would sometimes examine her phone. Do you recognize exhibit number 7?
Yes, it's a message he had sent her through Snapchat. I could also log into her Snapchat. So on my phone to check it every now and then just to see what's going on.
You had passwords that you had to have? Okay.
And it was just a very inappropriate message that I don't feel like you should speak to anyone that way, especially someone you love and care about.
And is this one of the many reasons that you caused you and Mark to have concern?
Judge, I object to leading.
If we get withdrawn, Judge. The exhibit number 7, if we could move that in, Judge, as the captured from Snapchat by Jill Walker.
That's fine. Just a second. This will move better if I can get some.
Is that your screen? That's not your screen?
No. Whoa, that's my mouse. Okay.
All right, well then,
I'm not plugged in.
you're not plugged in, are you plugged in?
And that's my mouse. I can see my mouse up there.
But that's not your screensaver up there?
No, my screen I can see.
No,
something
it's not.
completely different.
Unplug
not.
it away.
You unplug.
Well, we can move beyond this exhibit. We moved in number 7. We asked to publish it. But for the record, Judge, this is the same exhibit the jury's already seen the opening statement, the words of Riley Alton and Milwaukee. We asked to publish it. Okay, so Ms. Walker, at some point, does the defendant leave Central High School?
Yes,
And what does he do?
he does Miracle College.
Okay, is he playing football there?
Yes, he is.
And tell us, in terms of their relationship, did it increase or decrease after he left for college?
And the amount that they saw each other decreased.
Okay. You mentioned he was playing football?
His schedules were busy.
Okay. And though prior to that, how many times would you estimate the defendant's been in your home?
Maybe 2 times a week, just depending on business, 2 to 3 times a week.
Okay. And that's during their entire relationship?
Off and on, yes. I mean, there were periods where it wasn't quite that often, and here's where there's maybe a little bit more.
But in terms of him having access to your home, was there any place he did not have access to your home?
We took limits off her bedroom near the end, and we just said, where we can see you guys and see what's going on, and just to monitor a little better.
Tell us about that.
We just felt like just the things we were seeing and the way he spoke to her and didn't really respect our rules. We just felt like we needed to be around to monitor the relationship more.
Okay. So you said in terms of access, you at some point said you can't go in her bedroom.
Yes.
How many times had he been in your bedroom?
Not very often, nor was I been,
But he'd been in.
but he'd been in there, yes.
And in terms of when this occurred, where you cut off access and essentially common areas, when did that occur prior to her death?
Probably end of 2016, beginning of 2016.
Okay, before he went to college?
Yes.
Okay. When he came back from college, or when he was at Marable College, you said it decreased in times, the number of times that he would come and see her, but nonetheless, he still came to see
He's
her.
okay, yes.
Judge, if I just let Mr. Allen not lead the witness so much, we just object.
James, the meeting.
Just trying to get through it, Judge. You had mentioned before that there were some things that you had to do in terms of punishment because of behaviors that were happening. Describe that for the jury, the circumstances under which you had to institute punishment for Emma, for things that were happening between her and Ryan?
The punishments,
Yes.
sometimes we would just say, not seeing him for a little while. Sometimes we take her phone for a while just to cut off some communication. Never for huge long periods of time, but just try to get her to step back and maybe realize this wasn't the healthiest situation to be in for her.
Okay. And did you ever ground her, basically, to
Yes.
keep her at home? When was, prior to her death in November of 21, you recall that she was she grounded at that point?
Not at her death, no, but it had been a couple weeks before, yes, she was.
Okay. And a couple of weeks before, something happened between who and who?
Emma and Riley.
Okay. Describe that, the circumstances of what happened that caused you to ground her in the weeks before her death.
We had a situation at the end of October where she was moving out at a friend's house. And, I said, all good. You need to spend time with your friends. He doesn't need to be coming over. And about, 12 o'clock, 12:30 at night, we received a call from her that he had been there, and they had a neighbor from where she was spending the night at had called because they were in a driveway, and since she was under 18, she had to call us, and they had called the cops, and so we had to go pick her up.
And the police were there.
The police were there, and so we brought her home.
Who else was there?
Riley.
Okay. And what did you do as a result of that?
We had taken her phone for a little while to have some communication, let her calm down. And with granted her because we'd given her a chance to go out and do the right thing, and she chose not to.
Okay. And did you, what about cheer? Was she still a cheerleader?
She was still a cheerleader.
Was that a possible punishment for her?
Yes.
To describe that, tell the jury what.
Just we had reached all our limits and trying to get something that worked for her to see the light that this wasn't the best thing for her and not the healthiest thing for her as a person to be in a relationship with him. So maybe that would open her eyes to try to take something she loved, because we couldn't figure out anything else to do.
Okay. How was Emma reacting to all of this? Your gradual institution of punishment. How'd she react?
Very stubborn, very defiant. She wasn't happy with us.
But would she comply or not comply with you?
She would comply. Wasn't happy about it, but she would.
Okay. And so the grounding that you referred to on the 30th of October?
Yes.
The day before Halloween?
Yes.
That grounding, how long had she been grounded for prior to her death from that date, in terms of allowing her to do social activities?
Probably about 2 or 3 weeks.
Okay. And do you recall the day or the night that you allowed her to come off that grounding?
I don't remember the same. I remember the first time she got to go somewhere that she asked to go somewhere.
I guess that's where I'm getting at. You
Yes.
tell us that. When was that, and what were the circumstances of her getting to go somewhere outside? Let's first say, when you say grounding, what do you mean by that? That
She just couldn't. She could go to school and cheer and work.
and she was not happy.
No, she was not happy with us.
And so the first time that since the police were called, where she was in the driveway with Riley, to the time that you were allowed her to go out somewhere, what were the circumstances of that happening?
She was no longer dating Riley. She was being a little bit more her normal self, open and talkative, and so we were saying, okay, let's try this trust again, and let's go to
Describe that.
house.
In terms of the family, what was she doing that was encouraging you in terms of her behavior?
Just less defiant with us, talking to us more, doing what we asked. I could just tell that she was just being more talkative and open, and her personality had changed, and she seemed happier.
Okay. And so what did you do as a result on this particular occasion?
After she had cheered, there was a football game that Friday night. She was allowed to go to her friend Sarah Seaton's house, where there were some friends getting together.
Okay. And do you recall the date of that?
November 19th.
Okay. A football game would be on a Saturday or a Friday?
Friday, sorry.
Okay. So if
The 17th.
We'll stipulate it's the 18th.
18th of November?
Sorry.
Do you remember who the football game was between?
I do not remember. I know it was a home game.
Okay. And did Emma go to that game?
Yes, she cheered.
And what was the plan of what she was going to do? You mentioned it was Sarah Seaton?
They were going out to eat with friends, and then they were going to go to Sarah's house.
And what was the purpose of going to Sarah's house?
To spend the night and get together with friends.
Okay. Is that something she's done in the past?
Yes, before she was grounded and stuff, but not something she got to do very often.
Okay. And that was a sleepover, you said?
Yes.
Okay. And so she, when she went that night, did you hear from her that night?
I think we texted maybe once or twice to check on everything, how everything was going, and everything seemed to be fine.
Okay. And did she call you at any point during that night?
No.
Okay. What happened the next day? What was the plan the next day? What you were going to do?
And the next morning, she was going to get up. I was working at my school at a vendor event at Turkey Elementary, and she was supposed to come and that morning and come to the school with me. I was already there, but she was going to come.
Had she talked to you at all about Friday night?
No, not till I saw her later.
Okay. At some point, though, on Saturday, you get up and go somewhere. Where do you go?
I'm going to Turkey Elementary.
Okay. And what are you going to do there?
I'm helping her having a vendor event for the PTA Turkey, and I was helping with it.
So you're volunteering?
Yes.
And what was the plan as far as Emma?
She was going to come to meet me at the school. I'm thinking about between 10:30 and 11.
Okay. And does she show?
No.
Okay. What time is it that you become concerned about that?
I'm thinking about 11. I'm not sure exactly the time.
But nonetheless, what do you do as a result of your concern?
I just had a weird feeling, so I went home.
How far are you from the place you're at?
Maybe about 5 minutes from our home.
From Sturkey Hills, the
From,
subdivision?
yes, from Turkey Elementary to Turkey Hills.
Okay, and you drove
Yes.
back to your house? And did you call Emma before that?
Not that I recall.
Okay. Were you done with your volunteer work?
No,
Okay.
no.
So your plan was just to go home and come back?
Go back.
All right. Why wouldn't you call her before you headed to the house?
I'm not sure if I did or not. I may try to text her and she didn't answer.
Okay. And describe for us, you get in your car and you go to your house at 6002 Cardinal. When you arrive, what do you see?
Emma is parked in the driveway. She is standing in the driveway next to her car, and Riley Gaul is next to her.
Okay. And what did you do when you arrived?
I made sure she was okay, and then I asked him to leave.
Okay. Did you speak in it any more than to tell him to leave?
No, not a whole lot. I just asked him to leave, that he knew he wasn't supposed to be there.
Okay. Why did he know he wasn't supposed to be there?
Mark had an incident, my husband had an incident at the beginning of October that he was not allowed over at the house anymore.
Okay. And that incident, Mark was present for that?
Yes, I was not home.
Okay. And describe Emma's affect when you arrived there. How was she behaving? What was she like?
She was shaking and was scared.
Okay. And did she tell you what had happened?
Yes. That on her way home, she had seen someone dressed in black walking around.
Says we'll object to hearsay.
We would drop that. But she relayed to you, without telling us what she said, she did tell you what happened?
Yes.
Did you ever talk, from that point forward, did you talk to anybody else about what had happened?
I called my husband.
Okay. And how about any of your neighbors or Emma's friends that live in the neighborhood? Did you talk to them as well?
Later on, I had talked to Sarah Seaton about it.
Okay.
She did come by.
Did Emma make any unusual requests that night?
Saturday night, she had asked us to turn the alarm system on.
Okay. Had she ever asked you that before?
Yeah.
And you all have an
Judge,
alarm?
we'll object to hearsay to that, no strike.
You all have an alarm?
No, it was the one before that. Request made by Emma about an alarm system.
Expression of fear, Judge, 8033.
You can ask her if she asked to do something, you just can't quote what was said.
And she asked you to turn the alarm on,
Yes, she did.
and she'd never done that before.
No, she had never done that.
Judge, I object to leaving.
That last one, I was saying, is
Had she done that
No.
in the past? And so Saturday night, where did Emma stay Saturday night?
She was at home on the Saturday night.
Okay. And what was the plan on Sunday?
She worked at Eagles from, I'm thinking 12 to 5 or 1 to 5.
Well, I guess we didn't talk about that. Emma also had a job.
Yes, she
Tell,
did.
tell the members of the jury what her job was.
She worked at Eagles as a cashier. She worked Sundays and Mondays.
Okay. And 2 days a week.
Yes.
Okay.
Your Honor, if Mr. Allen would prefer to testify, I'd like to be sworn. He's continuing to lead the witness, Judge.
all right, it's, to some extent, you just moving the testimony. I think that's to be more careful.
And so you said the plan that day she had to work.
Yes.
Go ahead and tell us what did she have to do that day?
She was just, we had gotten up and I had followed her to work and we'd gone to eat breakfast before she went.
Why'd you follow her to work?
I was just worried about the events that had happened that weekend.
Okay. Pursuant to your conversation?
Yes.
Okay. And with regard to that shift, what was her shift that day?
It was either from 12 to 5 or 1 to 5.
Okay. And what happened at the end of her shift?
Her dad, Mark, went to wait until she got off to follow her home.
Okay. And so when Emma arrives home after work, describe the night, if you would.
I had cooked dinner, and then she had worked on homework.
Just a normal night?
And then she'd gone to eat ice cream with her dad later that night.
About what time did that happen?
It's between 7 and 8, I'm not sure exactly.
Okay. What time did you go to bed?
Around 10:30.
What about your husband, Mark? What time did he go to bed?
He's in bed by usually 8 or 8:30.
Why is that?
He gets up at 4 for his job.
Okay. Out of Y12?
Yes.
Which, early morning shift?
Yes.
Okay. And as far as Evan is concerned, what time does Evan go to bed?
It varies. I don't always make it up because late as he says that it's probably between 11 and 12.
Okay. And before you went to bed, did anything occur between Evan and Emma?
They had a little disagreement over the computer. Both had waited till the last minute to do homework. And they had a little conversation about it. And then that, and then I didn't really, I think they situated it themselves and fixed it. And then I went to bed.
So what time was the last time you saw your daughter alive?
About 10:30 when I told her good night, 10 or 10:30.
Tell us about, you went to bed at 10:30. You said that Emma was in her bedroom. And
Yes.
Evan was in his.
Yes.
And Mark, of course, with you. And you've already described you're on the other side of the house.
Yes.
I want you to describe the nighttime hours, if you would. When you went to sleep that night, after you went to bed at 10:30, did anything cause you to get up out of bed during the normal sleeping hours?
I wake up a lot anyway, but I wake up sometimes and just check on them in the middle of the night.
Okay.
And so I think I'd gotten up between 1 and 1:30, saw her TV was on, and went in her room and turned her TV off.
Okay, is that something you've done in the past?
Yes.
Okay. And you think it's about 1 and 1:30?
Yes.
Do you know that because that's what you normally do, or did you see the clock?
I saw the clock.
Okay. And describe that if you would. You said you went into Emma's room. Describe her room and where her TV is in relation to as you enter her room.
It's on the carousel bed, and it's on the wall. The window's on this wall, and the TV's on the opposite wall.
Okay. So it's opposite the wall of the backyard?
Yes. Yes.
And obviously, if you go in her room, you said the TV is on?
Yes.
Is the light on in the room?
No, just her television.
Okay. Okay, but the TV, is that illuminating it all?
Yes.
And what can you see?
She was sleeping. I didn't pay close attention. I went in there and turned the TV off and then left, but she was in her room sleeping.
Did you notice anything unusual?
No.
Did you hear anything during the night?
No, I remember Mark coming back to bed later because he said he had heard something.
Okay. And at what point do you get up?
I never got up at that moment. I got up when my alarm went off for work.
And when was that?
That was at 5 a.m.
You get up at 5 a.m.?
Yes.
And what's the morning routine, your morning schedule?
I get ready and pack their lunches and make breakfast for them before they get up.
Okay, and did you do that this morning?
Yes, I was getting her up earlier than normal that morning.
How come?
And she wanted to wash her hair.
She liked her hair?
She liked her hair. She had lots of hair.
Yes. And so what time was the plan for her to wash her hair?
I was getting her up at 6:15.
Okay, and did you do so?
And while I went in her room,
Well, tell the members of the jury, when you went in her room at 6:15, what'd you do?
and tried to wake her up.
How so?
I touched her on her legs, tried to wake her up. And normally she wakes up pretty quickly, or will make us, or a grunt or something when I wake her up. And there was no response. And so I went over to her shoulder and said, Emma, and then there was no response. So I was checking for a pulse, and there was no response. She was unresponsive.
Could you see what was wrong?
I couldn't tell what was wrong.
Okay. And what did you do next?
And I called 911.
And did you go back in the room after that initial time?
Yes.
Okay, what for?
Just to make sure there wasn't anything I could do.
Describe how you saw your daughter that morning.
She was laying on her back. Her tongue was out of her mouth. I noticed something on the bed. I thought that was she'd gotten sick or was vomit. I wasn't sure. But she looked like she was sleeping.
And what were you thinking? What's wrong?
I had no idea
And what did you tell 911?
that she was just unresponsive.
How long did it take for the police to arrive?
It was under 15 minutes.
And when they arrived, how did they respond? What did they do?
They went in her room, and I left at that point. They told me to leave the room that she had passed away.
So you knew they confirmed that she was.
Yes, they confirmed she was
At
gone.
some point, do you become aware of how? Did they disclose that to you, or?
Not then, no.
Okay.
Not while I was in the house.
All right. And so do you leave the house?
Yes, we were told to leave.
Okay. At what point do you find out her cause of death?
Probably not till later that night. When I was called in for interviews, they did tell me that she did hurt herself.
Okay.
So I knew at that point, but I didn't know at what point what had happened to her then.
Okay. And you obviously saw afterwards, you saw damage in her room.
Yes.
What kind of damage after the fact did you see in her room?
There were 2 holes in her wall.
And those, you didn't notice those holes that morning?
No,
Judge, I renew my objection to leave.
Did you notice those holes that morning?
no.
When the police arrived, did they ask you questions about Emma there at the scene?
Not that I recall.
Okay. Do you remember, well, let me back it up this way. Do you know of any person in your daughter's life that would want to hurt her?
Judge, I object to that being improper. This is just, her opinion as to that, I mean, that's going to come out and approve of this, but her opinion of that, I think, is improper.
Given the nature of the relationship and all the things that they have been through regarding her welfare, I believe there is a foundation for it. I will allow it.
Okay. And why is that?
Just from the things that I've seen that he has said to her, from the one section that finds your name in the obituary and
So what name did you give the police as to the person that you believe would cause harm to your daughter?
Riley Gaul.
Testifies.
Cross-examination. All right, please, all right. As soon as you were getting need a break and we're in the lunch hour anyway.
It's fine with you.
All right. I'll move break for lunch. We'll start back over.
Ms. Walker, go ahead and state your full name and introduce yourself to the jury.
I'm Jill Walker and his mom.
And where do you live, Ms. Walker?
6802 Carbondale Drive.
Tell us who the members of your family are.
Mark Walker, my husband, Emma Walker, my daughter, and Evan Walker, my son.
Okay, when did you have Emma Walker?
March 20th, 2000.
And so how old would she be today?
She'd be 18,
Okay. And how old was she when she died?
16.
And when did you have Evan Walker?
I had Evan Walker July 7th, 2001.
And he's your son.
Yes,
And how old is he today?
he is 16.
What do you do for a living, Ms. Walker?
I'm a teacher at Starkey Elementary School.
How long have you done that?
I've been a teacher for 25 years. This is my 10th year at Starkey.
Okay. And your husband, what does he do for a living?
He is a planner at Y12.
And your daughter, Emma, and your son, Evan, you live in a particular school district?
Yes, they were done for Starkey, Gresham, and Central.
Okay, Sturkey Elementary,
Yes.
Gresham Middle, Central High School?
Yes.
And is that your subdivision, Sturkey Hills? Have you lived there the entire time?
Did all of Emma's life, yes.
Okay. And so you moved in, you've lived in that house what's the address of your home?
6802 Carbondale Drive.
And so you say you've lived there all of Emma's life?
Yes.
Okay. Did Emma have her own bedroom?
Yes.
Describe the layout of the house for you, for the jury, if you would, as if we enter from the street, walking into your house, just orient us how your house is laid out.
And when you walk in the front door, there's a living room, dining room that's open. If you go to the right, there's a hallway to the garage and also our bedroom. If you go to the left from the living room, there's Emma's bedroom, a bathroom in the middle, and Evan's room.
Okay, so is Evan's room closer to the street or closer to the backyard?
Evan's room is closer to the street.
Okay.
And this is the backyard.
And Emma's is?
The backyard.
Okay. And approximately what size bedrooms do they have, if you know?
I have no idea.
They're not
They weren't
expensive.
huge bedrooms, no.
Okay. And when Emma died, the orientation of her bed, which way was it pointed in her room in relation to the backyard? Was it lengthwise of the backyard or?
It was lengthwise.
Okay. And so as she slept at night, her head would be in the corner, back far left corner of the house?
Yes.
Okay. And that was what were her normal sleeping arrangements in terms of clothing that she would wear?
Sometimes shorts and a t-shirt, just depending on the weather.
Okay. What kinds of activities was your daughter Emma involved in?
When she was smaller, she did competitive gymnastics and competitive dance. And then as she entered freshman middle school, she started doing cheer for freshman in high school.
And is that something you encouraged as parents, you and Mark?
Yes, and she was happy doing it, then it was a good thing.
Okay. And when she entered high school, she did that as well?
Yes.
What kind of student was she?
She's an AD student, very good student.
And in high school, you said that were there other activities that she did besides?
And she did HOSA, the Health and Science. She wanted to be a nurse, so it was an organization that worked towards that.
Any particular type of nurse that she wanted to become?
And a NICU nurse.
And what about Evan? Is Evan involved in activity at school as well?
He plays sports. He played basketball at the time, and now he's getting ready to play football.
Okay. How far behind Evan was, or how far behind Emma was Evan?
They were
Grade-wise?
2 years behind in school, so when she was a junior, he was a freshman.
Okay. I want you, if you could, Ms. Walker, describe for us Emma Walker. What kind of person was she?
Very independent young lady, very curious, empathetic, loved animals. She was the kind of person where she didn't try to act a certain way or do certain things to fit into a group. She was her own person, and also a very stubborn teenager, but very fun-loving and silly,
Okay.
and a good leader.
And that her strong-willedness, or rather constitution, would that sometimes cause you to conflict with Emma?
Yes,
Okay. And you had to discipline Emma like any other parent?
yes.
Okay. At some point, did you become aware that she had started a relationship when she got to high school?
Yes, and she told us.
Okay. And who was it that she started a relationship with?
Riley Gaul.
Point him out for the jury, if you would.
There.
Record reflects she's pointing to the defendant, Riley Gaul.
Record will so reflect.
And tell us about the genesis of the relationship, so to speak. What did you think of the relationship as it began?
In the first couple months, it was fine. It seemed normal. So we kept close eye because she's only 14 years old.
Okay, and how old was he at the time?
16.
Did you know his status in the high school?
I knew to play football.
Okay, but you're a school teacher, so you know things that are going on in the schools. Was he a standout on the football team, or how?
I think so, yes.
Okay, but you didn't follow that.
Not always. It's more about being a cheer mom than watching a football game.
And how was Emma about Riley? What tell us about her.
She was drawn to him. I thought she thought it was very nice and secure.
Okay. And you thought you and Mark both shared the same initially?
Initially, yes.
At some point, does that change?
Yes, I guess it was winter of 2015. I guess he started kind of going back to his ex-girlfriend, and we kind of saw that he kind of being played with another girl. Just there was some things going on where I guess he was kind of playing them both.
Okay. And you took, of course, whose side of that?
Emma's.
Okay. And so the falling out of the relationship, is that the beginning of the falling out in terms of what you felt?
How you treat someone.
Okay. And at some point, do you monitor your child in any particular way in terms of seeing what she's doing?
Yes, as a parent of a teenager, check texts, monitor things, see what's going on.
Okay. And so did you do that on a regular basis?
Yes.
Leading up to the fall of when, or rather his graduation in that summer, had you been regular about checking texts and communication?
Yes.
And did you become concerned about those types of things?
Yes.
Tell us why.
Just some of the language and the way that she was spoken to, we didn't feel it was appropriate to speak to anyone like that.
And did you address those concerns with Riley?
Yes.
And how was his attitude towards that?
And we would talk to him, and he would explain he was angry and try to defend himself against it.
Okay. And was he respectful to you?
Face to face, he was respectful to us.
Okay. But would you see something else on the phone?
On phones, it was just angry if we would say no or not let her do something. I felt like some things were not. He didn't respect us as parents. When we said no, we meant no.
Okay. And so what did you do as a result to try and parent your child with regard to her relationship with Riley Gaul?
We tried to discourage her from seeing him. Sometimes you have to give and take a little bit. So we would set limits on how then they could see each other.
Ms. Walker, we've not met, have we?
Yeah.
I want to tell you, I'm sorry for your loss.
Thank you.
And I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to come over to your home. I want to talk a little bit about the relationship and how it started with Emma and Riley. She was 14 at the time?
Yes,
Okay. And she was a freshman.
yes,
Had she already made the cheerleading team at that time?
yes, she had.
Okay. Had you ever met or heard of Riley Gaul before that time?
She had maybe mentioned him a couple times.
Okay. And at that time, did you have any trust issues with Emma?
No, did not.
There was some references earlier on in your examination by Mr. Allen that don't let me put words in your mouth, that there was some concerns you and your husband Mark had with trusting Emma.
This was situations that had happened with Riley.
Okay. And so when did you and Mark start having concerns with trusting Emma?
Just with certain things she would do with Riley, like for example, if he showed up somewhere, she was obviously telling him where she was at. And so after we had said, please don't do that,
Okay.
and teenagers are teenagers, but you have to have trust, so.
Yes, ma'am. One of the instances that you referenced was the one involving sometime in late October.
Yes,
Okay. And that was the incident involving the party, and I don't mean some crazy wild party, just people hanging out over it. Was that Lily Resmondo's house?
yes,
Okay. And so arrangements had been made for Emma to participate in a party at Mr. Lily Resmondo's house sometime in October of
Yes.
2016.
yes.
Okay. And at that time, were you aware if Riley was going to be there or not?
No, we were not aware.
Okay. Is that something you feel like Emma would have told you he was going to be there?
Probably not at that time,
Okay. Why not?
just because we were not, we made it clear to him, her, that he did not need to be there. That she was to go there and have fun with her friends.
Okay. And so that's in October of 2016, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So was there times prior to that? I know you mentioned in your examination by Mr. Allen some grounding and some discipline and things of that nature. So were there times before that October 2016 event at Lily Resmondo's that you had developed some trust issues with Emma? You and Mark?
Yeah, I mean, just here and there, things that if she had told us one thing, it not always be exactly what was going to happen, yes.
Okay. Can you give an example of that, Ms. Walker?
For example, we had evidence that he had snuck into our home, and that's not something that became a trust issue.
Okay. And about when was that?
I'm not sure the exact, sometime in 2015. I'm not for sure the exact date.
Okay, 2015? And I'm sorry, Ms. Walker, Ms. Christie, she has a hard time.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Were there any events prior to that?
There were probably little things where, he would show up at certain places in certain friends' house that, we could just ask, if you're going to go out with your friends, be honest, be honest. If he doesn't need to be there, he doesn't need to be there.
Okay. And at what point in the relationship, if you can recall a time, Ms. Walker, that you felt like that it was important that Riley and Emma not have a relationship?
We had finally had enough in October 2016. We felt like we had given plenty of opportunities, plenty of talks, plenty of warnings, and obviously they weren't going to be heeded to, so that's enough.
Okay. So when did the plenty of talks, plenty of warnings, when did that start?
Well, by beginning of October 2016.
Okay, so don't let me put words in your mouth. Are you saying that things were fairly okay up until that October
No, we
2000?
had had plenty of instances with text and talking to him about the way he spoke to her and how he treated her,
Okay.
and how he respected us as parents. We had several talks with her and him.
I think you testified during your direct examination that there were ways that you could monitor her texts. Is that true?
Yes, well, I would check her phone.
Like you
And then
physically would take her phone?
Mhm.
Okay. And were there other ways that you could monitor her traffic on her phone?
There was one thing I did for a little bit where you could see some of the texts and things that went through.
Okay.
But
When did you start doing that?
that was just for like a couple months in 2015, but then it was just easier to check her phone.
Okay. And was she always willing to give you her phone?
Not always, but it wasn't an option.
Yes, ma'am. So there was an exhibit that was referenced earlier. That was a screenshot, I think. Do you recall that exhibit?
Yes.
Okay. And when was it that you became aware of that information?
That was spring 2016.
Okay. All right. And so after the spring of 2016, were there times that Riley was permitted in your home?
Yes, with monitoring.
Okay. And so how many times, if you can recall, from the spring of 2016 up until, let's say, the end of October of 2016, that Mr. Gaul had been over at your all's home, that you know of?
Of our knowledge, with until the beginning of October 2016, maybe once a week sometimes,
Okay.
sometimes not.
Okay. Was that something that you and your husband would prearrange with Emma? I mean, how did those...
We would have to talk about that we were going to be there.
Okay. So you had to make arrangements that either you or Mark were going to be there? Okay. And so that went on from the spring of 2016 up until October, is that a fair statement?
Yes.
Okay. So would that have ended in October prior to the Lily Rismondo incident?
We had an incident at the beginning of October where my husband was home. And at that point, he was not allowed at our home anymore.
Okay. And that was the instant where he was working on his truck and
Yes.
you told him to get in the house? Okay. All right. And it was from that point that you state that my client wasn't permitted in your home anymore? Okay. And had he, to your knowledge, been to your home after that point?
Not that we know of.
Okay. You would agree with me that Emma was somewhat secretive about sharing stuff with you about Riley throughout?
Riley, yes.
Okay. Was she secretive with sharing other things with you throughout their relationship? Any other things? I mean, that you found out later?
Not that I know. I mean, teenagers aren't going to tell you everything, but I felt like she was open with me about a lot of things.
Okay. But you would agree with me that she was secretive with you about her relationship with Riley?
Yes, because she knew that we didn't approve of it.
And when did that disapproval start?
In 2015, just when I saw she wasn't being treated right, and then it just increased.
Okay. I think when you were interviewed by, I think it was maybe Detective Merritt or somebody, you remember being interviewed by a detective about this case?
Yes.
And I think one of the comments you had made that you all were just trying to make things work for Emma.
Trying to give and take a little bit.
Okay. When you say try to give and take a little bit, Ms. Walker, can you elaborate on that?
Just trying to make amends meet, so trying to build trust and trying to see if it could work, but if you're not going to abide by our rules, then there comes a certain point where you have to cut it off.
Okay. And if she did not honor your or Mark's instructions to whatever they may be as it relates to the relationship, what forms of discipline did you all impose?
A lot of times it was, you're not going anywhere with your friends if we can't trust you to go, or you'll lose your phone for a certain amount of time.
Okay. Anything else? I vaguely remember somebody talking about cheerleading.
Well, we had not taken cheerleading yet.
I see.
No.
But that would have been the
That was our next step.
that's the big one, right?
Yes.
She really enjoyed cheering.
Yes.
Okay. And so other things that you would do in addition to taking her phone away from her or not letting her be with her friends was to exclude her from having contact with my client?
Yes.
Okay. And was she resistant to that you and Mark maybe didn't want her having contact with Riley?
Yes.
How would she resist that? How would she express that?
She just wasn't happy. She would let us know that she wasn't happy about not seeing him.
Okay. Were you aware that she was communicating with him quite frequently?
Yes.
Okay. The phone that she had gotten that's been collected by the sheriff's department? You turned that phone over? No, I think they took that from you maybe. The phone that she had? Okay, they took it from you? Okay. And that phone she had purchased, and that was the phone that she was using up until her passing?
Yes.
Okay. And that particular phone, she had started using that in July of 2016?
It was older than that, I'm not sure the exact
Okay,
date.
okay. Some of the data on there started maybe in July, and I thought maybe that's when she had gotten that phone. Okay. There were a couple of other phones that were turned over to the sheriff's office. Do you recall that?
Yes.
Okay. And one was an iPhone, and then another one was an iPod?
Yes.
Okay. You remember turning those over to Detective Merritt sometime in July 2017?
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Well, it would have been.
January. I think it's
I
January.
don't remember the exact date.
Let me. January 13th, 2017. Does that sound fair? January?
I guess so.
Okay. And then you also turned over a notebook to Detective Merritt as well.
Yes.
Tell the jury about the notebook that you had found.
I didn't really, I just glanced at it. It looked like there were notes between her and Riley in it.
Okay. And the records reflect that it was turned over to Detective Merritt on April 20th of 2018. Do you know when you found that notebook?
Whenever I found it, I had to text them and tell them I had it to give it to them.
Okay, so it was pretty close in time to that date?
April 2018?
April 20th, 2018? Yes, ma'am? You don't recall that?
I feel like it was before that, but
Okay. So where did you find that particular notebook?
it was under her dresser.
Okay. And was that part of y'all maybe doing something with her room?
She's probably cleaning up a little bit.
Okay. And there were some other things in there other than notes. Is that a fair statement? There were some other things, like I think there were some flowers and some things there. Do you recall that?
In her room now?
No, in that notebook?
I don't remember.
Okay. Do we have the number 63 from the... Passage, you might hold it. Number 11. Miss, Ms. Walker, who was that in Marcus? If you just look through that, Mr. Mann. It has a reference on here, date recovered April 20th, 2018 from Bill Walker. You agree that's what that label says? Okay. Does that refresh your memory on maybe when the sheriff department got a copy of it? Is that fair enough? Just we move this in as exhibit 11, please.
No objection. Very well, let me see.
And just, I'm just going to stick it. Maybe we close this time later, but Ms. Walker, after reviewing exhibit 11, what are those notes and letters from Riley?
Yes.
Okay. Do you recognize that handwriting as Mr. Gall's?
Yes, I didn't see his handwriting that often, but they were all signed Riley.
Okay. And where at in her bedroom did you say you had found that notebook?
Underneath her dresser.
Okay. Had her room been rearranged any in the last couple of years prior to her passing?
Maybe once.
Okay. And then there was also the iPod cell phone the reference that I had says that Detective Merritt collected that from the bedroom chest or drawers. Do you agree or disagree with that?
I agree.
Okay. So is that something that you found and alerted him to come get?
Yes.
Okay. And why did you do that?
Just so we have it if he needed it.
Okay. And then also, as it relates to were there 2 more cell phones in that room?
I don't remember.
Okay. Were there at least 1?
Yes.
Okay. And you turned those over to the detective as well?
Yes.
So, going back to the relationship and Emma, she was secretive about her
Our
contact.
relationship with Riley Hawk, yes.
Okay. And how long was she secretive about that?
And I think probably once we started, seeing the signs that it wasn't a healthy relationship, we were limiting it to some extent.
Limiting.
Limiting because she wanted to see him.
Okay.
Limiting it before October 2016.
Right. Okay. And so, and that's prior to the Lily Resmondo incident. That's the incident where we're talking about at your home. That your.
Yes.
Okay. Now, you also, Riley would go to Emma's work and eat lunch with her.
Yes.
Okay. And I think I remember somewhere in one of your interviews you made reference that you and Mark were okay with that.
We were okay as long as it wasn't excessively where it was going to interfere with our work.
Right. And to your knowledge, it was not excessively interfering.
Not that we know.
Okay. Did you know the volume of communications that Emma and Riley had throughout their relationship, electronic communications? Are you familiar with the volume of that?
I've been told. I realize they talked a lot, probably not to the extent that they did.
Okay. And would it be fair to say that sometimes Emma didn't always say some nice things to Riley?
I'm sure people get mad.
Okay. And I think that was one of the things we referenced. I think it's in Exhibit 7. And I'm not trying to trip you up on this, but there was a reference about you and or Mark maybe had confronted Riley about something, and he said there was something about him being angry or something. Mm-hmm. Is that accurate? Am I accurately characterizing that testimony that I just heard?
Well, he said Riley said he was angry.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Okay. And so you would agree with me that Emma would text things to Riley that were sometimes out of anger as well?
I never saw anything that was to that extent, no, not the name calling and the threats, no.
But she would use the F word?
Oh, I'm sure she did.
Okay. Okay. All right. So, did Emma use bad language to you and your husband?
No.
Did she use bad language to others in your all's presence?
No.
And after this event in October, did you go to speak with the law enforcement officer when you got called over to the Lily Resmondo incident?
Yeah, they were there, so we spoke to them.
You and Mark both went?
Yes.
Okay. And as a result of that, you all grounded Emma. Is that right?
Yes, because, we had told her he didn't need to be there, and he showed up.
I'm going to back up just a little bit. I'm sorry, but before he went to Maryville College, I think you said he went to Maryville College.
Yes.
Do you remember when he went? Do you remember when that was?
I guess August of 2016.
Okay. And you also knew that he turned 18 in August 2016. 2016 is,
Yes,
all right, and so, so she was not grounded up until the Lily Resmondo incident, right?
not that time she was, I mean, she'd been grounded before, but not that time she was.
Okay. And the grounding was for her to stay away from Riley?
Well, the grounding, she wasn't allowed to, after that incident, wasn't allowed to visit their friends either.
Okay, so it was complete shut off.
She went to work in school here.
I got you, okay. I want to move to the November the 18th of 2016.
Okay?
And do you know Sarah Seaton's parents?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And is the event where Emma went to the Seaton residence on November the 18th, is that one where Emma had been before?
Yes,
And to your knowledge, had Riley been there when he was a student at high school, at Central High School?
maybe a couple times.
Okay. Was that a place where after football games, a lot of the students would go to the Seaton residence?
Not always, I mean, they've been friends for a long time, so it was one of her hangouts with her friends.
Okay, so, but it is accurate that on Friday nights, after football games, they would go to somebody's house?
Sometimes,
Okay. And that was what was going on November the 18th?
yes.
Okay. You actually saw the text messages from a number you didn't recognize regarding that incident, correct?
Yes,
Okay. And when did you see those text messages?
I saw this on Saturday.
Okay. And that's before the incident that you talked about Riley being over at your house? You saw those text messages before he was at your house on the 19th?
No,
You saw them after that?
no, yes, but I remember.
Okay. You did text some with Emma on the night of the 18th?
I think so.
Okay.
Your reference with us. Walk with you as look through these text messages.
Where did you go? And you said not him right with a question mark, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And is that referencing whether Riley is at the Seaton residence on November the 18th?
Yes,
Okay. And then if we move over to the next page, you make a comment, Riley doesn't know where you're at, does he? I had a bad dream, correct?
yes,
And that was at 11:19, that was on 11:19 at 3:27 a.m.? You agree with that?
yes,
Okay. And then, and that's a text message you had sent to Emma.
yes,
And then at 11:19, on 11/19/2016, which would have been a Saturday, at 6:33 a.m., you say, when you get up, I'm not mad at you, or you are not in trouble, but I need to know the truth. Correct?
yes,
Okay. And then you tell her, I love you, but your dad and I will get to the bottom of this. I'm going to be at Sturkey, so just make sure you let me know when you leave.
yes,
Okay. And then it says, Mom, it's okay, and that's from Emma, correct?
yes,
And that was on November 19th at 7:26 in the morning.
yes,
And this is the same day where you're going to be volunteering at Sturkey, and Emma's going to go home and then go meet you at Sturkey?
yes, it is.
Okay. And Emma tells you that she blocked the number, correct?
Yes,
And you say, no, it's not, was it him? And she says no, correct?
Yes,
And the him that you are referencing is Riley.
that's correct.
And that's the next morning,
Yes,
okay? And you told Emma that the number was not a real number, right?
yes,
Okay. And Emma told you that it was a real number.
yes,
And when she told you that, that was on November 19th at 7:36 in the morning.
yes,
She also said at the bottom of page 2, she says, the person talked to me on the phone.
she does say that.
Okay. If you'll turn to page 3, the third one down, Emma states, whoever it is just wants my attention.
That's correct.
Above that, she says, it's okay. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And then above that, she's referencing, no, it freaking wasn't. And do you have any idea what she's referencing there?
I guess she's saying that it wasn't his number. I don't know.
Okay. And the things we just discussed occurred around 7:37, 7:38 in the morning.
That's correct.
She tells you that she says at 7:39 that morning, she says, I know Riley's voice and it wasn't his.
That's correct.
And you tell her he put, it says he put yo, but you're saying you're, he put, well, I don't know what it is. He says he put your friends to it. What?
Probably put maybe friends up to it.
Okay. She asked you to forget it. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And then the next line, she said at 7:45 that morning, she says, I'm safe and nothing's wrong.
Yes, she says that.
Okay. She says, and you just don't happen to run across those unless you're going through my messages. And that's at 7:46 that morning.
That's correct.
And you stated, no, just showed up on texting. He better stop. We are taking it to the police. Yes, I do care.
That's correct.
Okay. She asked you again, please stop, Mom, and that's at 7:49 that morning.
That's correct.
And the next thing she says at 7:49 is, it's stupid people trying to mess with me.
That's correct.
She asked you again to stop, and she says, we can call the police if it happens again.
That's correct.
And then she says, let her sleep.
Yes.
Okay. On the next page, at 8:25 that morning, on November 19th, she says, Mom, I can honestly say 100% wasn't him.
That's correct.
And that's, she's referencing Riley.
I assume yes.
Okay. She tells you later on down there at 9:03 a.m., it wasn't his damn voice. It wasn't his damn voice.
Yes.
That was a text she had sent you?
Yes.
Okay. Turn to page 5 on November 20th, which is a Sunday at 8:12 p.m. You tell Emma, this is at the very bottom, well, if you go back to talking to him, you will be back in the same boat of sneaking, and we aren't doing it. So I guess your answer, I can say you are. You agree with that?
Yes.
Okay. And then that same morning, you state, Emma states at 8:14:58, I'm not fucking talking to him, but thank you for accusing me.
Yes.
Okay. And her number's 865-712-6246.
Yes.
Okay. And you tell her at 8:16 p.m. that night on November 20th, you say, well, don't lie to us after everything we have been through.
Yes.
And on down there at 8:16, she says, I'm so over this.
Yes.
And you tell her, okay, I hope not. If you are, she says, I'm so over this. You say, okay, I hope not. If you are, there won't be just a week of being grounded.
Yes.
Okay. Would you agree with me that you didn't know anything about Riley showing up on November the 18th at the Sarah Seaton residence until later in the day on the 19th?
Yes. That I know of.
Right. And that's not something Emma had shared with you on November the 18th while she was at Sarah Seaton's?
That he had showed up.
Yes, ma'am. Okay. And she didn't share that with you in any text message or anything else the next day?
No, but she would not tell me that it was Riley Gaul, no.
Okay. You found out through some conversations with Emma that morning, or was it from another parent?
She had mentioned that later on, and then I had also talked to Sarah's mom.
Okay. All right. So you're aware that the police were not called to the Seaton residence on November the 18th?
I'm aware.
And neither you nor Mark called the police as a result of that incident either?
No.
Okay. All right. So let's talk about the morning of, can we make that an exhibit, the next exhibit, before we move away from that, please?
objection.
No. Okay, go ahead.
Are you aware that at times Riley would help Emma with her homework?
Yes.
And do you know how they would help how he would help her with her homework?
When he was allowed over, sometimes he'd help her back to the house.
Yes, ma'am. And were there other ways that he would remotely, to your knowledge, help her with her homework?
Not that I know of, not that we talked about.
She had an email address,
Yes,
and was that through the Knox County school system?
yes.
Okay. So, you didn't get a call from Emma on the morning of November the 19th, that Saturday?
I don't remember everything that happened that morning.
Yes, ma'am. But you didn't know Riley was over at your house that morning?
That morning, no, I did not.
Not until you got
Not until I
there?
got there and he was there.
Okay. Okay. Do you remember calling Emma that morning? You remember calling Emma that
I
morning?
know that morning's kind of a blur.
So I'm just going to show you what's in Marcus Exhibit 13 and see if that refreshes your memory.
Yeah.
Okay. It's
It's a
okay.
phone call from me.
Yes, ma'am. And I understand it's been a lot, so it's just, okay. So does you agree that you had a 1 minute, 24-second telephone conversation with Emma that morning?
Yes.
Okay. Judge, we just move that in as the next exhibit. And so that would have been, that phone call would have been, if I can get that from Ms. Walker, that phone call would have been one that would have occurred before you got to your house?
Yes.
And was that part of what you were telling this jury when Mr. Allen was questioning you about she's taking a little bit of time to get to Starkey and you were concerned about, or is that?
I can't tell you what the conversation
That's
was
fine.
about.
Okay. But at that time, you were not alerted that Riley was over at your house? And you were not alerted that somebody was trying to break into your house?
No.
Okay. So to be clear, the only time that you were aware that somebody was trying to get into your house was after you got to your house that morning?
Yes.
And Riley was there?
Yes.
Okay. And were you aware that Riley that Emma had reached out to him to have him come over there?
She told me she had.
Okay. And did she tell you how she had reached out to him?
No, I just knew she had, obviously, either called or texted him.
Okay. Did you have an iPhone as well?
Yes.
Okay. Are you familiar with FaceTime?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So after after you get there, you told Riley he needed to leave?
Yes.
And he left?
Yes, he did.
Okay. He didn't argue with you?
I think you want to try to explain, and I just said you need to leave.
Yes, ma'am. Because there was not a problem at that time? There was not a problem, I mean, there was no conflict?
No conflict now.
Okay. To your knowledge, did Emma reach out to Mark about that incident that morning?
Not that I know of.
Okay. Do you remember, just a moment. You testified a moment ago with Mr. Allen that you had followed Emma to work.
Yes.
Okay.
On Sunday.
That was the 20th.
Yes.
And what I wrote down here, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that you said that you were concerned about what happened. And that's why you followed her to work. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Okay. And being concerned about what happened is what you're describing what happened the Saturday morning?
Saturday morning and Friday night.
Okay. All right. But that was not a concern that Emma had. That was a concern that you had.
Not that she was telling us. that she
Okay.
was concerned.
So she didn't say she was concerned.
Not that us, no.
Just as a parent, you all were concerned.
We were concerned.
Yes, ma'am. Eileen, can you switch this over? If I could, do you have a monitor up there as well?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. Yeah, ma'am. Ms. Walker, if you could, use that little red, you said get that little red, can you? Yeah, you might have to stand up, I don't know. Does it work?
The address it.
She
Okay.
does screen? Okay. They tell me you can touch the screen as well.
Oh, okay.
She can just touch it? Just see what happens. Okay, so yeah, I can. Okay, so is this sort of an aerial view, Ms. Walker, of your residence?
Yes, it is.
Okay, and if you would, looking at that, where is your bedroom? You're in Mark's bedroom.
Our bedroom is right here.
Okay, on the back side of the house?
Yes.
Okay, and then moving right to left, where you've got that sort of like eave sticking out there, what's the next room over from your bedroom?
Right here.
Yes, ma'am.
And that's our living dining room area.
Okay, and
There's
so,
a
okay,
kitchen and a living room dining room area.
all right. And so then, coming forward a little bit, is that your living room then?
Right here.
Okay,
Yes.
and then the areas in the back there, is that like a little sitting area?
This is our kitchen.
Okay, it's where you eat? sit-
Yes.
Table. All right, and then Evan's bedroom?
Evan's bedroom is right here.
Okay, and then Emma's bedroom?
Evan's bedroom is back here.
Okay. All right. All right, thank you. I'm going to unplug this thing. I don't know what it's going to do. Well, let me ask you this before I do that. So, and let me see if I, so when you got to your house that morning on the 19th,
Yes.
where was Riley's car?
It was in front of the house right here.
Okay, and looking at that screen right there, which way was it pointing?
And the headlights were pointing to the right,
Over here,
like towards our driveway.
so it was facing this direction?
Yes.
Okay. All right, and is that the same direction you came into the neighborhood?
I came in from the church.
So your all's cars were facing head to head?
I came and pulled up right here.
Okay. And the driveway was not blocked? I mean,
And
it's,
it was in the driveway, her car was in the driveway right here.
And as I understand from your testimony, you didn't hear anything the morning of the 21st.
No, I did not.
Okay. But Mark may have.
Yes.
Did you have Riley's phone number in your contacts? In your phone?
So,
Okay. And had you texted with him some?
so yes.
Okay. When you were interviewed by Detective Merritt on November, I guess that's the 21st, he asked you if you had ever read any messages where Riley had threatened to harm Emma, and you said not in that way, no.
I haven't seen anything like it had threatened, or I'd seen, I'll see your name in the obituary.
And that was from 2015?
That was 2016, spring of 2016.
Okay. Okay. And that when you saw that was before you were still letting Riley come over to the house?
Yes.
Okay. And just to be clear, you didn't contact anybody about the reference about the obituary, law enforcement or anything like that?
Like a police officer?
Yes, ma'am. Okay. And you didn't take any legal action against Riley?
No.
And he was still permitted, I think you said, to come over to your house every week? It's thereabouts, somewhere in
And
there?
we spoke to him about it.
Yes, ma'am. Okay. But he was still permitted to come over to your house?
Yes.
Okay. The laptop that Emma and Evan were arguing about, was that your school laptop?
Yes, it was.
And that was a laptop that Emma did some of her homework on?
Yes, sometimes.
And that laptop was in her bedroom when you went in on the morning of the 21st?
I don't recall it being, I know Evan had used it too, I don't remember where it was at that time.
Okay. And that laptop has been turned back to us?
In every school year.
Yeah, had to turn it back into the school. The sheriff's department didn't take that, or any law enforcement agency didn't take that
No.
to examine that? They didn't examine that?
Yeah, they
Okay.
didn't.
Her bedroom, law enforcement went in and took a bunch of photographs of the bedroom on the 21st that morning. You're familiar with that?
I wasn't there, I don't know.
Okay. Let me just ask it this way. To your knowledge, had that bedroom been disturbed at all after you had went in and found your daughter until you all were allowed back into that bedroom? Was it in the same condition? You didn't move anything around?
No, I did not.
Yes, ma'am. Okay. All right. And after you discovered her, the medical professionals showed up, EMT people, I think, responded, and law enforcement?
Yes.
Okay. Just a moment, Your Honor. A few more questions, Ms. Walker. In one of your comments to Detective Merritt, you described the relationship between Emma and Riley as off and on.
Off and on, yes.
Okay. What do you mean by that?
They break up off and on.
Do you know how many times over that 2-year
I
period?
have no idea.
Several?
Yes.
Not trying to hold you to any particular number. Would you say more than 10 or less than 10? Or about 10?
About 10.
Okay. Ms. Walker, thank you.
Anything I'll reiterate, just briefly, one question. Ms. Walker, if you could just stand down, and what we're referring to is exhibit number 1. And you've already told the jury this is your subdivision.
Yes.
And if you would point out your residence on this for the jury.
If you find it, check on there.
And this is Colston,
Yes.
and this is Carbondale.
Yes.
Okay. And are you within Barksdale, within this area?
Or closer.
To the corner here where Cardinal turns? Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, the sixth house in? Okay, so that would be your house right there? And where's the pool?
The pool is right here.
Okay, and so, normally, if, you come from the pool, what's the natural way that you would come?
There's several different ways. I would only come around this way, but you can go there's several different ways.
Okay. And, the defendant's headlights, were pointed which way?
They were pointing, you're facing our house, they're facing, right? Like they were facing this way.
Okay.
Is that?
All right, and so where is Applebee's in relation to your neighborhood?
It is off of Merchant. It's pretty close. It's close.
Okay, and so the natural way that you would drive from Applebee's would be what to get into your subdivision?
It depends what entrance you take. If you take the third phase, then it's on the street.
I'm talking just the natural way, driving past Applebee's, where you would go to get into your home.
I would go to Turkey.
Okay, and that would be the fastest route,
Yes.
Jim's Turkey, over to here to
Yeah,
Cardinal?
here's Cardinal.
And so the natural fastest route, your headlights would be facing?
Judge, I'll just object to leave the witness.
What
And
direction?
I don't know if this is necessarily proper opinion testimony anyway.
Go ahead and ask the question.
The natural fastest mode of travel from Merchants, where Applebee's is, your headlights would be end up placing which direction?
It would be the other. This way.
Okay. And is that the same or opposite of the direction that you saw his vehicle in when he was there? Thank you.
Yeah.
Anything further on the three property?
How many different ways are there into that subdivision, Miss?
There's several entrances.
Okay.
There's 4. But then you can come from Jim's Turkey, and that's not an entrance to the subdivision. It's just a back way.
Okay. So a person could get to your house a couple of different ways, get to Cardindale a couple of different ways?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Anything further?
Are you aware how he told police what route he traveled?
Judge, I think
Are
that's
you aware of
improper.
that?
It's a statement by the attorney. You can answer
Are you aware of what route of travel he told police he took to get to your daughter that
No.
day? Okay.
that. Anything?
No, Your Honor.
You can step down. Thank you for
Michael Mays.